Welcome to the podcast. We have Mabz from MV Motorsport.
Thank you for having me, bro.
My pleasure.
To be fair, there's a lot of people been asking me to come onto their podcast, but I think you are the most relative to what I do. I think in the automotive culture, given a platform, especially to speak about, our passion, which is cars.
Yeah, for real. And this has actually been one in the pipeline for a long time too.
Oh, mate.
You're a busy man.
To be fair, you're really busy too. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? We're both busy, and it seems like we're at opposite ends of the country. We're not 2 hours. Really.
It's Brum?
Yeah, Brum, Midlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Took a little bit of time to get down today, didn't you?
I don't know what it is, man. These motorways. Yeah. I think you need a license to drive on the motorway. I swear. Yeah. There should be a separate test for motorway driving. Because the guys in the third lane, please do not go in the third lane if your car is a 1 litre.
Exactly.
Because you're not overtaking that van. No chance.
But you know what the main thing is, bro? You made the effort and you're here today.
I'm here today, yeah.
And you know what? Before we actually get started, I just want to say to the people, I'm so sorry for the lack of podcasts. We were speaking off camera. And again, just relating back to it, bro, I'm busy. People, I'm so busy. But I love doing this. So I'm trying to find a way to balance doing this with life and obviously the automotive side of my YouTube life. And we're going to make it happen. So after this, hopefully a steady flow will come through. So forgive me, we're back. And we're back with a bang. Innit? I spit some bars, bro.
Pop some bangs.
Yeah, we're back with pops and bangs. Oh, man. Listen, bro. In fact, before we get going to, check this out. Mabz comes bearing gifts, and it's lit. Look. So, shout out to who am I shouting out here?
It's Carl, actually. Carl used to work for us, and he does a bit of artwork, and he made me a massive M2 poster, and he was like, are you going to see Jamie anytime soon? I was like, yeah, actually I am. Yeah. He goes, I got something for him. So yeah, I'm just the messenger, bro.
Okay, well, shout out to Carl. His Instagram is N77Jones, Jones. He made me a sick little portrait of my RS5, my 911 Turbo, and then me in the middle. So shout out to you, and shout out to Mabz for bringing this down. Oh, and there's a little key ring in the back that says MVM.
It's a limited edition, bro.
Limited edition, that is. So, all right, bro. Cool. So anyway, basically what I like to do with these podcasts is kind of start from the beginning, take it back, you know what I mean? Because obviously you're quite well known on the automotive scene. In my eyes, you are anyway. I think you're quite a prevalent figure. And people only perhaps know you as the person you are now, not where you started, what I mean, where you grew up, what growing up was like, and so on and so forth. So I thought we'd take it right back and just talk a little. You grew up in West Midlands, yeah? Yeah,
so I grew up in Birmingham, Handsworth in Birmingham. It's got its name for a lot of things. Obviously, it's a bit rough.
Oh, is it? Do you know, bro, you see people who live in London, yeah? Sorry to cut you off, yeah? Bro, we live in our own bubble. We don't know what's going on out there, bro. So you could tell Birmingham to me is just one place, bro. I didn't even know that was split up into parts, bro. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's mad. It's mad. But yeah. So I grew up in Handsworth in Birmingham, kind of a typical working class family. Big family. I've got 6 brothers, 2 sisters. Oh, wow. So it was a huge family, which is crazy because I'm the youngest in my family. So anytime I was in trouble, bro, it was like, oh wow! The oldest would come, then the next one, everyone was
from 6 down.
It was sick. But on the flip side of that, anytime I got in trouble, bro, I had 6 people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was sick. It was sick growing up. But yeah, typical. I was always into cars. Always into cars.
How did you find your love for cars?
I think I found my love from my dad. My dad always had a car. He was one of the first in the community to have a car. Anyone who needed a lift, anyway, he was the guy.
You're talking as in a normal car, not a modified car?
No, just normal cars. Yeah.
What, there wasn't bro, how far are we going back?
This is going back, way back, yeah.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 37.
You're 37? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we're going back to the kind of 90s, isn't it? I grew up in the 90s and, cars back then, we had modified scene, but generally cars were A to B, right? There wasn't a huge scene until the Max Power came. Max Power days, I'm sure you probably
100%, bro. I grew up off that. I'm 32, so I'm a little bit under you, but at the same time, look, we both grew up in an era of no social media in our childhood. So magazines is all we had if we had that passion, right?
I think magazines paved the way for everyone. I think it gave you the ability to dream a little when you had a car.
100%.
But I was always into cars, man. I was always at the car shows. I was always watching my dad fix his car on the drive. And it's mad because I ended up doing that as well because as soon as I got a car, I was on the drive. I was fixing neighbours' cars, mates' cars on my driveway. I never ever thought of it as a business. I never ever thought of it
yeah.
as an income, but it was just something I always wanted to do.
Okay.
So I was like driving cars from the age of like 12.
The age of 12?
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was, you know, people, you know, respected figures of the community would come to me and say like, oh, can you service my car?
Oh, so you were actually not only driving cars at the age of 12, you were fixing them.
I was fixing them, yeah.
At the age
So
of 12?
Yeah.
So what made, like, look, don't get me wrong, there's people who love cars. Like, I loved cars when I was younger. I loved cars when I was 12. But for me to pick up a spanner and actually try it, I know everyone's got different upbringings, but right then, bro, I was more, I don't know, like petrol remote control cars and little petrol scooters and things like that. Yeah. But I mean, like, bro, I'll be real with you. I ain't handing the keys to no 12-year-old to my car, bro, to service none.
I'd say it was 12, 13. I was in secondary school, do you know what I mean? And there was a massive passion for cars. And people trusted me. Like, people come to me and ask me questions about cars. And I was like, yeah, okay, I don't know the answer yet. But there was Haynes manuals. There was like
Haynes manuals.
So like, I was like, anyone in the area with like, back then it was like Rovers. I don't know if you remember the Rover Tomcat.
Rovers. The Rover what, sorry?
Tomcat. No, it was like a twin top Rover coupe. Nah, you don't remember that?
Maybe I do. So was it the one that kind of pointy front?
Yeah.
And they made a 4-door version of it too, a 5-door version or whatever.
Yeah, they did, yeah. But this was like the coupe version. It had like T-tops, so the glass roofs would come out and you put them in the boot.
Maybe, vaguely. Was that the one that, did they come with a spicy engine, one of them? Like
yeah, so they came with 3 engines. Like, there was a 2-litre naturally aspirated, 2-litre turbo, T16 turbo, and there was a 1.6 with a Honda engine in. Because Rover and Honda were like one company at that time. So Rover used to use all the Honda shells, like the Honda Civic back then was the same shell as a Rover 200. So there's a mad partnership. So yeah, that's what got me into modifying. Because I then realised, I was like, hang on a minute, well, that's got a Honda engine. Let me go get a Honda Haynes manual.
Yeah.
So I was changing timing belts, you know, adjusting idle control valves, advancing distributor caps to get more power. Do you know what I mean? So this is like bare knuckle tuning. Like, this was before, you know, you could program an ECU directly. It was like chip off and stuff.
That's like the thing. It used to get it chipped. That used to be
yeah.
Oh, it's chipped. It's had this. It's had that.
Yeah.
What was that? What was it? It was like, again, forgive my naivety. I got into the scene of tuning, whereas, you know, you're doing ECU remaps. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just remember people talking about chips, having what is chip? It's like a little chip they take out?
Yeah, the chip is the actual processor. So it's the flash prom. It's what controls every element in the car. Well, every element in the engine as such. So within the ECU, there was a chip. Okay. And you couldn't read and write to that chip. You'd have to take a soldering iron, take it off, put it on the programmer, read it, write it, put it back on. So it was a long-winded process, and it was a bit harder to do because in between revisions, you were kind of chip off, chip on.
Chip solder back on. Oh, mad. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the era I grew up in. So there wasn't much kind of ECU programming back then. And the guys who did know what they were doing, there were like 2 in the country. Do you know what I mean? Wow. You needed to get your car tuned. There was 2 guys.
Is that
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's mad.
That's crazy.
And now it's saturated.
It's literally saturated. Do you think, it's definitely social media. It's done that, isn't it? It's connected people and allowed people to grow because, you're right. I don't, again, maybe I was a little bit too young, but I don't remember a lot of tuning companies back in the day. I had a tuning company quite close to me that I know was quite like prevalent with the Fords and big in the Ford game. They were called Power Engineering. I don't know if you've heard of them. Yeah,
I remember them. Yeah.
I think they do. I think they're still about, you know. Yeah. But again, I think their heyday was the max power times.
Yeah.
You know, and now social media's come. Sometimes, bro, and you'll probably know this, it's not even how good you are, it's how good your advertising is.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean? And your brand. It's a brand almost, right?
Yeah, that is the definition of business these days, isn't it? Brand recognition. Yeah. If you're wicked on your branding and, you know, you've got the hype and everything, the product comes secondary to that now. Yeah. Which is crazy because I've built my business based upon the product, not the brand. It's only in the last couple of years that people have, you know, drawn to the brand and adopted the brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back in the day there wasn't much tuning. But I knew what I wanted back in the day. Like, I knew cars were it, and I knew modifying, making them faster, you know, being trusted with, you know, high performance cars at a young age. I was like, this is something I need to do. Yeah. But it's crazy because I come from a family of, you know, professionals like doctors, accountants, lawyers. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was like, shit.
So that was never like ingrained into you through your, like, kind of by family? Like, kind of have a trade, get into the car thing? They would prefer you to be an academic or something?
Yeah, definitely. I think the reason being is because my father, he sacrificed his whole life for us. Do you know what I mean? Like, this, you know, 6 brothers, technically 6 different individuals that need 6 different professions for a future. Do you know what I mean? So he kind of sacrifices his whole life, you know, his income for our education and stuff like that. So it was mad. So yeah, the kind of the direction was education. The direction was get a degree. The direction was, you know, earn a stable income so that you can yourself have a family and, you know.
Yeah. No, I hear that. And do you know what? Like, I'm sure my parents would have liked me to go the same way. But you see, you know, learning for some people, it's not always the same. You know, as in, like, some people don't learn by like, or they don't learn great. You know, being in the class, reading, writing, sitting there, listening to people. Like me, I was more of a hands-on learner.
Yeah,
that's why I went straight into an apprenticeship. I don't know if you know, I'm a mechanic by trade, right?
Yeah, you're a HGV mechanic.
Yeah, I slip it in every podcast to try and surprise people.
Show me your hands. Show me your hands.
I've got little girly hands now. I've been off the tools for so long. Do you know what the thing is? I went, so I actually done about 10 years on the shop floor.
Oh, wow.
Between 3 different companies. So my first company I was with for 8 years. Second company, I went to Mercedes main dealer. Hated it. Main dealer stresses and all that, like being on the books, efficiencies and all that. Not that I was shit, but you know when you're in a pressured environment,
it's
mate,
mad.
I started to melt, like fall apart. Like, bro, do you know what I done once? Yeah, this cemented it for me. Yeah, I was like proper time pressured. Yeah, I was servicing a Sprinter. Yeah, bro, I dropped the oil out. I didn't even put the sump plug back in and I topped it up, bro.
Oh,
and the oil comes straight back. And it weren't me who clocked the oil coming at the bottom. It was someone else. Do you know what I mean? And they were already onto me. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, but like, so I thought, yeah, this ain't for me. So I left and I went to work for the fire brigade, which was Mercedes kind of like, the whole fleet was Mercedes.
Oh, wow.
And so basically I'm Mercedes trained going back. And that was just such a relaxed environment. It was like, it was the polar opposite of the main dealer I come from. It was almost when the job's done, it's done. Just get it done right. Like, you know what I mean? Which I like, but it slowed me down so much. I was like, I love this. This is such a relaxing place. If I stay here, I'll never be able to work anywhere else. Like, you know what I mean? And then I was kind of on the, I was gonna leave. I was thinking about, I need to get out of it. Like, I love it, but as I say, it's an elephant's graveyard. That's what I used to call it. Bro, if like, you know, it's the place where old technicians come to die. Do you see what I'm saying? Because, bro, like, it's the perfect retirement place, right?
Oh, man.
So a place come up that was mobile. So, a position come up that was mobile. I could go mobile for the London Fire Brigade. So I'd done that. So I'd done 10 years on the workshop floor altogether. I'd done about a year on the Fire Brigade workshop floor. Then I went 6 years mobile. Best job I had in my life. So, yeah. But again, going back to it, what's quite crazy is you've always grown up on the cars, right?
Yeah.
I've grown up around cars and loving cars, but my day-to-day has been working on diesel trucks. And when it comes to the companies that I've been working with, again, they've been massive companies that need quick turnarounds up into the fire brigade kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even with the fire brigade a little bit, whereas if something's broken, a gearbox or something, all right, there's only so far you're going to delve into this issue before, whoa, let's just get a fucking new gearbox. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like to, depending on who I'm talking to, call myself a mechanic, yeah? I'm more of a fitter. So today I'm speaking to a proper mechanic. I was a fitter.
Okay.
That's the disclaimer, just in case you start talking technical.
So basically, if my van breaks down, don't bring it to you.
No, don't bring it to me. I can service it. I might put the sump plug back on. I might not, bro. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them.
Shocking.
But no, I like to think I was good at what I do or done. But I don't do it anymore. So yes, I have girly hands, soft hands, you know what I mean? You know, for touching up the girlies. My missus only, you know what I mean? Obviously, no, joking.
Shocking.
But bro, all right. So going back to what, obviously, that was your kind of upbringing around cars and everything. What was your first car though?
You know, it's hard to say what my first car was because, like,
legit car.
My first car.
In fact, you had a field car or something like that.
Yeah. Everyone had a.
What was it?
Everyone had a kind of a car that was the official first car.
Yeah.
I had runarounds, right? So if I needed to get A to B, this is going back in the day where there was no, you know, disclaimer here, there was no ANPR. Do you know what I mean? So if you got pulled over, it was a producer.
Do
you know what I mean?
Like, bro, that was the godsend. You could turn up as someone else at the station. Did it?
It was amazing. Like, I feel sorry for everyone driving now at a young age. But yeah, my first official car was probably a Suzuki Swift GTI. I don't know if you remember them.
All right, cool.
Mainly Japanese import cars. Mainly.
Okay. So you was a Jap man?
I was a mad Jap man.
So what happened?
Rust. Literally rust. Yeah. So
okay, what being the imports coming from Japan, not being undersealed properly and coming in?
Yeah, everything about a Jap car back then. Like we're talking EK Civics, EJs. Do you know what I mean? Like they were always rusty. So you do a suspension change on it, man. You got the blowtorch out. Like it's going on. So stuff like that, MOT failures. You know, cars that were rusting mad. But yeah, my first car, Suzuki Swift 1.3 GTI.
That's quite.
It was crazy.
Bro,
it was
anything with GTI in the name for a first car, you're doing well, right?
Guys, anyone who knows the GTI knows the GTI. Like it was special. Like it was tiny, fiberglass body kit from factory. It was lightweight. It had a Kawasaki engine. Technically, a 1.3 Kawasaki built. No, it was a Suzuki Swift GTI, but it was like a motorbike derived engine, so it revved to like 10,000.
10,000?
10,000 RPM if you wanted to. And the worst thing about that car was there was no spare parts. Do you know what I mean? Like the door lock motor failed. Like that's it. You got no door lock. Like your car is left on the side of the road with the door lock. I'm going in through the boot to get into the car every day. It's shocking.
The struggles are real.
Even like tuning parts. Like there was cams, high lift cams. It was a naturally aspirated engine, so high lift cams, exhaust manifolds, all of that was imported from Australia. And, you know, we're going back, you know, year 2000, 2001, 2002, where, you know, the pound was amazing. The Australian dollar was, you know, really low. So parts were cheap. I remember buying literally another Swift GTI in parts, like literally importing everything over. But yeah, that car was fun.
What power were they back in the day? Because I'm putting you on the spot now. Because I'm trying to think, do you know what, like again, I had this conversation. Do you know what's mad, actually? So, all right, so I'm going to say this to say something else. So, I've got a video dropping today, which I'm not sure when this is coming out, but today I've got a video dropping of an R34 GTR, right?
I've seen it, the white one.
The white one, right?
Yeah, mint.
800 brake horsepower,
wow.
And I shouldn't even feed the trolls by airing this kind of stuff to make him think that he even got to my head, But I had someone, so I dropped little teasers on my Insta, And I had someone message underneath, so-and-so's doing this, so-and-so's doing that. Sub 1,000 brake horsepower cars ain't cutting it no more. And I thought to myself, this is a Japanese icon, perhaps the most iconic Japanese car there is right now, depending on what you think. But with 800 brake horsepower,
it's mad.
And I've got a dickhead saying, if it's under 1,000 brake, it's not cutting it. And it's kind of now, I feel like with the modern day, things are moving so fast. Advancements are moving so fast right now with this modern day car technology. Unless it's 1,000 brake, people ain't caring. But what we got to do, bro, is we got to take it back to when we were younger and what a fast hot hatch was, let's say, Bro, we're talking under 100 brake.
Yeah, it was. It was literally that. I mean, Civics, come on, man. Civics, VTECs, you know, 1.6 single cams, twin cams, they were like, you know, sub 180 brake, and that was the fastest front wheel drive you could get. Yeah, it was mad.
Yeah, bro, I had an RS Turbo for my first car. I was so lucky, right? Wow. It wasn't really an RS. It was an XR3i cab with an RS Turbo lump in it, full conversion. So basically the body kit, Recaros, everything. Bro, listen, it was my saving grace. I don't know if you've heard this story before, but basically I bought that car because I had just come off a ban, So hang on, let me take it back a little bit. I was on a ban, and then when I come off the ban, I thought because this is before I had a license, I had a ban, right? So when I come off the ban, I basically had to get my license, and then obviously having this on my license, I wasn't going to be able to get a car that was bigger than a 1 litre, basically. And a 1 litre back then, I'm talking 2005 or whatever, was, bro, 60 brake horsepower, 3-cylinder or whatever. So my boy, you got a dodgy mate. We all got dodgy mates. Bro, I can get insurance on any car for you, £500. I thought, oh my God. So I'm looking now, I'm searching, exploring the possibilities of what I can get now, because my dreams kind of come true. Again, money allowing. I had $2.5 grand, like, you know what I mean, to buy a whip.
That's a lot of money back then.
Back then it was a lot of money, right? And to think now, people are like, you picked up an RS Turbo. I know it was swapped, it was a bit of a Frankenstein, but even now, for $2.5 grand, like, bro, if you've seen this car, it was mint, like, you know, that's 10 grand now, probably.
Easy.
So I got this car, but saving grace, right, because the insurance flopped about 2 weeks later after I bought the car, but saving grace hadn't been changed on the logbook to an RS Turbo. So the XR3i cab, I insured under my mum's name as second driver, and it wasn't too mad. Had it been an RS Turbo, it'd have been game over. So although his hairdresser, that thing got me.
You do know you're incriminating yourself. Do you know what I mean?
It's right. It's done, innit? It's done. It's done. But what was I saying? Yeah, so basically the cars back in the day, mine was 140 brake horsepower. And when I used to rock up at meets, kind of got respect.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I kind of it was stock, but you know, for someone to turn around and say they had a 300 brake horsepower car back then, bro, there weren't much cars pulling up to the show with more power.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's true.
400, 500 was a mad thing, and you was driving a Cozzy or something, like, you know what I mean, with a turbo that big.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
Well, back in them days, there was two kind of communities. There was the Jap community and the Ford community. That's all I knew, to be fair. I think there was a French community as well, like the Peugeots, because you know, I was into my French cars as well at some point. I had a Peugeot 306 GTI 6, bro, supercharged.
You had that? You had a supercharged one?
Yeah,
bro. So that had the right. So I know this. Right, that had an had an S16 engine in it.
It never. It had an XU10 J4 RS. So
did you? Nah, but right, because I had a 205. Yeah, people usually do the MI16 swap in those.
MI16 from the 405.
Yeah. I had an S16 engine in it from a GTI 6. I think.
You sure?
I swapped it from an RS Turbo, funnily enough, and it just rocked up, and this thing was, mate, it was shoehorned in there. It was so big, the engine.
Yeah.
But it said S16 on it. And I've said, please tell me I haven't been telling everyone this story that I had an S16 engine in there. What is an S16 engine?
I don't know.
But I had a 5-speed gearbox on it. So it was like, okay, tell me more about your pug.
Yeah, the Peugeot was like, it was kind of, it was late in my teens. Like, I bought a Peugeot 306, had a bit of damage on the front, repaired it, kind of put it up for sale. Me and my brother went halves on that, actually. Like, till this day, I owe him half that car, by the way. But yeah, it was mad because it was a mad community. The Peugeot community was mad. Like, everyone was close together. They used to go to meets. They used to do events. And they were kind of independent of every other car community. So it was a good time. It was a good place to be. But there wasn't many tuning abilities back then. We're talking kind of, there was literally 2 guys in the country who could tune that engine. I'll tell you a story about that engine. I took it somewhere who said he could tune it. And
I could not tune it.
Well, he said he tuned it, but...
Oh, yeah. It come back feeling exactly the same.
Mate, the guy didn't tune my car.
Go on. Start from the beginning, bro.
Yeah, so back in them days, the Magneti Morelli ECU that's in the Peugeots, there were chip-off jobs, right? So if you took it anywhere, you knew that. So if you took it somewhere and they were sticking something in the OBD and claiming they're mapping it, you just knew they weren't mapping it.
Okay.
But they were just giving it the bells and whistles, and they had this donkey dyno that would just read anything they want to.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And it was, there was...
Did they give you a dyno printout too?
Yeah, they did, yeah. It's shocking. Shocking. But you know what it is? Back then, I kind of dealt with things in a different way. Do you know what I mean? I just stood on the side. I was like, yeah, you're not tuning my car.
Oh, really?
You're not doing nothing.
Okay.
Walked away and, okay, well, tell me the truth. What have you done?
Yeah.
Oh, nah, to be fair, I'm struggling with this car, but we made 10 horsepower. I was like, you ain't made shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a fact.
Yeah.
So it's funny because the tuning industry gets this, don't they?
Yeah,
with dynos, like, how much power have you made?
Bro, I was going to get to that because
bro,
you're the dyno man, bro. You're the dyno man. I don't want to get started too soon on this, bro. How long we got?
We have to go back. We have to go back.
All right, cool. So where are we at now? So yeah, basically, so like, obviously, so we've all had trouble past. I don't want to go delve into too much or whatever, but was it kind of cars that got you into kind of?
Yeah, I think to be fair, look, once you're surrounded by cars, you're surrounded by certain individuals, and if you're at an influential age and you're earning money and you're being responsible for people's cars, you are going to kind of look to your left and right and say, hang on a minute, how are these guys driving these nice cars?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So I think, growing up where I did grow up, I was kind of protected. I was in a bubble with my family. I mean, they did a great job of keeping me away from majority of the danger. But do you know what I mean? Like, 14 years old, I seen my first gun. Do you know what I mean? Wow. Like, 15, my mate died. Do you know what I mean? From a gunshot. 16, a couple of guys are going to prison. So this is the environment that I'm growing up in. So it's a world where, if you're at that age and you see this going on, you can either stick or dip. Do you know what I mean? You either, make your way, hang around and you become influenced and you follow the same path, or you kind of learn from it. And I think all my life I've been pretty good at learning from other people's mistakes. Wicked. So even in my family, they've had a couple of businesses that have not been successful. Do you know what I mean? So I've kind of seen where they haven't succeeded. Other things like education. I've always seen education amazing. Education is key. How you develop from that education is a different ballgame. Like, if you are a guy who can't sit exams, you're getting D's, right? Yeah. But if you're a guy who has this sponge-like ability to soak up knowledge, you're going to carry that with you for the rest of your life. So, people laugh at me. They say, hang on a minute, how do you do mapping now? Like I said, I use GCSE maths. What did you get in maths? I was like, I got a B. Like, huh? Okay. Hang on a minute. I said, I'll tell you why I got a B, because I fell out with a teacher. Okay. Right? And I was in the top set of mathematics in my school.
Oh, it should have been an A.
It should have been an A.
Okay.
Shocking. But these are the kind of stress and strains. I mean, I was in a certain circle. I never got on at school. Like, school for me was like, it was difficult. Like, I was always overachieving, but it wasn't cool to be overachieving.
Yeah, for real.
It was mad because, like, if you're overachieving, you're not.
It's a fine balance, isn't it?
Yeah,
Before getting kind of, the clever guys or the boffins. The thing is, they usually, because they were quite academical, it was usually the sports people and that got the ratings.
Yeah,
so you're either one or the other. To cross over, to be the clever guy who was Mr. Popular, it's quite hard to do. Some people done it. Some people done it, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. I think, once the teachers realise who you are, what your character is, I think your relationship with teachers at school has got to be key to kind of you succeeding in school. Because, like, if you are an A-star student, and then you fall out with the teacher and he puts you in a set B, like a lower set, the max you can get in that is a B. Do you know what I mean? And that's your whole future defined by your grade. So I was never a fan of the education system. Like, the syllabus is so outdated. Yes. They don't teach you things like, business, finance, rent, rate, mortgages. They don't. Yeah. And I think that age, if you can take that knowledge on, and I was quite lucky because I had, brothers who were going through certain things at certain times. So for me, it was like, okay, well, I know a bit about finance, I know a bit about this, I know a bit about that. So I was, trying my best to kind of stay in school, not get kicked out too often. But I was still, for me, I enjoyed it. I fully enjoyed it. I fully enjoyed soaking up all the kind of the material from, maths, English, science, the usual. That's
interesting, though. Yeah. It's interesting. I like science, going back to it, because it's interesting. I like being intrigued. I like dreaming. I'm a very, like, I don't even know if this kind of relates, but you see, if it comes to a movie genre, I like science fiction because it allows you to wonder. Do you know what I mean? And when, like, with science, sometimes they're doing these experiments, they're telling you about the solar system, they do all these kind of things, and that I liked. I was shit at it, but I like listening. What I mean? English, I just couldn't get down with it. I was too fidgety, bro. As I say, I'm a hands-on person.
Bro, let me tell you, I went to English lessons, right? And my desk was outside. I turned up to an English lesson and my desk is outside with my name on it. So that kind of summed up English lesson. So it's hilarious because I should have brought my mate with me, man. He would have told you all the stories from, like, secondary school. It's crazy. But yeah, I think, those guys who are, academic, have a great relationship with their teachers. The moment you fall out with your teacher is the moment you fall out with that educational system.
They're busy. Yeah, they are stressed.
Yeah.
If you don't want to learn and you're a little dickhead, they ain't got time for you.
Yeah.
They ain't got time for you.
It's mad.
But obviously, like, moving past the troubles and everything, again, I can kind of, now you're painting a bit of a picture for me, because obviously being 12 or 13 years old and kind of almost without knowing, kind of starting a bit of a business or whatever, fixing people's cars, I'm guessing that kind of gave you the spark to become the entrepreneur that you are today, I guess. Or like what? Because obviously these troubles and influences around you, this quick money, this easy, this mad lifestyle that you could have chose. What was the thing that made you keep this, or switch over to the straight and narrow and just want to pursue what you're doing now, but professionally and properly?
You know what it is? I think everyone is born with a skill. Everyone's born with a skill and a passion. And if you can utilize your skill, your passion as your income, you're never going to not want to go into work. Like, I love Mondays. I love going into work Mondays because I love what I do. Wow. And I think everyone who has a skill and a passion should pursue it. But if you look at everyone's life and you see where people have ended up, there's usually signs of where you're going to be at a younger age, I think. Like, if I was surrounded by cars, I was driving at a young age. I was hustling. I was, buying and selling things as well. So, like, the latest gadgets, phones. Like, I was the phone guy at school, right?
Okay.
Like, you talk about phones, but phones now.
8210 and that.
Oh,
you remember the red one,
mate.
The small one, the first small one that come out. Jeez.
Yeah. So I was the phone guy. Snake.
They don't know.
3310, bro.
33. Was that the first face-off? No, 5110.
Yeah, 5110.
Do you remember when Nokia just run the show?
Oh, mate, Nokia. Where are they?
I don't know. That's like the biggest rise and fall.
Shocker.
If you didn't have a Nokia, you were a nobody back in the day.
Yeah, you were nobody.
Now you're a nobody if you've got a Nokia. Like, you know what I mean? Is that even a thing? I don't even know if it's a thing.
But school, like phones in school were, it wasn't common. Do you know what I mean? I'm going back to Philips Digger. Anyone who knows a Philips Digger, right? SIM card was the size of a credit card.
Okay.
Right, that's going out far back.
Philips
I was
Digger.
dealing with phones, right?
Oh, okay.
And I was buying, selling phones, giving people the opportunity to use a phone at school.
Oh, like that? What,
Do you know
charging
what I mean?
them like...
Yeah, charging them for what they're doing, phoning your friend or phoning, whatever it was.
Wow.
But this is going back to a day where, technology was, primitive. It wasn't, phones were just literally dialers. Yeah, they had the odd game on it. But yeah, Nokia came on the scene and, they were the kind of single band. They were like, you're either on Orange or T-Mobile or Vodafone. Yeah. And if you wanted to switch provider, you need to unlock your phone. So who do you go to?
Mabz.
The
no
phone
way.
guy. Yeah.
You were doing all that, yeah?
So I was doing
unlocking phones and that?
I was unlocking phones.
How were you doing that though?
Mate, I was so lucky. My eldest brother, he used to work for Carphone Warehouse.
Okay.
So this guy had textbooks. Like, shout out to my older brother. He had textbooks from Nokia. Like, Nokia would send him, like, detailed documents on how to disassemble a phone, how to go into programming mode, how to do this, how to do that. Oh. I was coming home from school. I was reading them books.
Sick.
He's still at work. Do you know what I mean? I'm in the bedroom reading these books on how to program a Nokia 8210. Wow. So, where it used to say, whatever network provider you're on.
Yeah. It used to flash up at the beginning, did it?
Nah, it was always on. It was
just
always
at the top, in the top corner. Okay, cool.
So I'd reprogram it to kind of show some pixelated photos, like change it to a name or whatever it was. And back then it was binary, right? So you download the data from a phone, you edit the binary as if it was text and you'd upload it back up to the phone. You could unlock the phone at the same time. There was so much you could do. You know what I mean? Like flashing aerials.
Flashing aerials. Yeah, I remember that.
Shocker.
I'm trying to think. I remember what's getting a ringtone that wasn't on the normal kind of the one that come with the phone. A thing at one point.
It was a massive thing.
Like someone would have a mad ringtone. You'd be like,
yeah.
How did you get that ringtone on your phone?
Yeah.
That was a thing, innit?
Yeah, it was.
You doing all that kind of?
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Yeah. So, majority of my kind of school life, I was making money. Do you know what I mean? Like doing things like that, and buying and selling gadgets like Tamagotchis, bro. Like,
man said Tamagotchis.
Do you know what I mean? Tamagotchi.
Whoa, bro.
Brand new
that
Tamagotchis
throwback.
Was one thing, right? A grown Tamagotchi, one that's been cared for was dough. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, what? So you was out here making a Tamagotchi just be like, I can't remember how it worked, but I know your thing could die.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you was making it the most healthy, certified Tamagotchi thing ever, and then you were shotting that at its full potential.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And people are paying over and above.
Yeah.
What about Pokemon cards? You ever into that?
Nah.
That was my you were probably older by then, right?
Yeah. So I'm about 5 years older than you, innit? So
because when I was when I was about 8, Pokemon cards would have flexed, you would have been a teenager.
Yeah. I was in college.
So that was too. But my thing was slapping people's Pokemon cards in the hand and just grabbing as much as I could and making them go missing for the. You know what I mean? But that was just my thing. But bro, in fact, Pokemon cards. I don't even. Bro, this is automotive. It's meant to be. Do you know what? It can go in any direction.
Talking about?
Any direction we want. Yeah. But Pokemon cards. Yeah. Going back to it.
Yeah.
So you're not a Pokemon card guy. How old are you? Man's coming from the other side.
The other side. There's no one in between, bro. Like
What's your name, brother, again? Farhan. Shout out. We got your nephew.
Yeah, shout out to my nephew. He goes everywhere with me. He's my keeper.
Sick.
My security.
What he does, yeah?
Do you know what I mean?
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm stuck in between a rock and a hard place here because no one really knows about Pokemon cards. But Charizard back in the day was the main one. But he wasn't that rare to get a shiny Charizard, yeah? So you might get him every other pack or so. I don't know. But I have bare Charizards. You know what I mean? 100 grand now.
Wow.
For a Charizard. Bro, when I heard that, I see it on eBay.
Serious.
Check in the yard.
Mad.
Where are my Pokemon cards gone?
Mad.
But yeah, they're all gone. But anyway, sorry. Back to the Tamagotchis.
Tamagotchis, yeah. So, whenever you're making money at a young age, legitly, illegally, whatever you're doing, you're always going to kind of, you're gonna get some sort of trouble, aren't you? Yeah. You're going to get guys who, the haters, the guys who are envious. Do you know what I mean? And there were always going to be some problems in any sort of trade that wasn't seemed legit, right? Because, selling phones, unlocking phones, buying and selling.
You're doing
gadgets.
it on the kind of side.
Yeah, doing it on the side.
It's lawless,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's lawless, yeah. So I think majority of the trouble that I got into at school was on the back of that. Do you know what I mean? Like how to keep your income at school secure. And don't forget, this is like a double life. Like I'm going home, I'm like, yeah, A-star student. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I'm actually going on with dough. Do you know what I mean? Like, buying and selling stuff at school, like, it's mad. But yeah, so majority of the kind of trouble I got in at school, the kind of, you know, animosity I got was from me being successful in what I'm doing.
Okay.
So you know, the birth of the name NV Motorsport came from school.
I was going to ask you that. Is it actually like as in envy?
As in envy, yeah, yeah. So that's what
I wasn't sure if it stood for something.
Yeah, everyone says that. I mean, yeah. So initially, I was kind of I was designing in school. So I was, you know, designing cars. We used to go through the Max Power magazines, right? We used to go through Demon Tweaks. Demon Tweaks.
They're still running. They've kept it quite vibey.
They're
still about, aren't they?
They're current. I think they've moved with the times, don't they? Yeah. There's a lot of guys who still ain't about. But yeah, in kind of art lessons, I was drawing wheels, drawing cars, and you know, for me, that was, you know, the passion. That was my downtime, innit? So when I want to, you know, shut off from the hustle, shut off from the education, I was designing, I was doing this, I was doing logos. So my actual original company logo was ENVY Motorsport, right? It then shortened to NV, and I thought, yo, that's cool. I then bought number plates with NV, and I was like, yo, this is it. This is the kind of the platform that I'm going to go with. So it was mad because, you know, when you're that young, you're dreaming, aren't you?
Yeah.
You don't really know what's going to happen. I did know that, you know, education was the kind of route I was taking anyway. And I left secondary school, went into college, and I still kind of
what did you study? Were you doing anything towards like motorsport or anything?
Yeah, you know what it was? On the first year I went into college, I didn't even want to go into college. Like, I was making enough money to kind of go into something else. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was like, oh man, do you know, every morning was like a drag. Like, I do not want to go in there. But it was crazy because the bus journeys to college was like an hour.
Oh, wow.
But in that hour, I was trading.
Okay.
So whatever it was, like, you know, 10 Nokia, you know, 8210s or like, whatever it was, I was trading in that hour. So the bus journey was actually my trading time.
Okay.
And then I go to college and I would just, you know, sit there and do college work. But I never ever kind of got into college, and, you know, I studied everything I needed to study. And I thought, you know, what can I study that would help me in the car industry? So like physics, computing, IT, all of that stuff. So
you've had this master plan.
Oh, mate.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting because not a lot of people know where they want to be and use. Don't get me wrong, they do. You got people who think, I want to be this, I'll go to college and study this. But it seems like you're kind of studying all different aspects that aren't the actual, let's say, you're not studying mechanics or mechanical or whatever the hell they call it now. You're not studying to be a technician, but you're studying things to help you hit that. Not a lot of people do that.
To be fair, it was to help my hustle at the time, which was phones. Okay. Programming phones, unlocking phones, buying and selling phones. And by the time I got to college, I was, you know, stock had increased, right? Okay. So we were like, we were selling boxes of phones, pallets of phones. And, you know, all of a sudden now, you know, instead of going straight to college, I'll stock
pallets of phones?
Yeah, it was mad.
Big
it
money,
was absolutely mad.
Do you know what was sick about phones? And I just remembered when we were speaking before. You know, back in the day when your phone got teethed, yeah? Bro, whoever teethed that phone's got a phone that works. Yeah. Do you remember that? Getting your phone jacked was a lucrative thing, bro. If you clapped someone's phone, you had a new phone. Yeah. So you had to watch your back. Now they're not worth too much because unless you send them to another country or whatever. Yeah. And that's kind of died off a little bit. That was a serious business for other people licking phones.
Yeah, it was a mad business. And I think, you know, I've always said it, behind every kind of criminal entity, behind every sort of crime, there is a legitimate business you can make from it.
Yeah.
Do you get it? Like the guy who sells weed down the road, mate, open up a chemist.
Exactly.
Do you get it?
Exactly.
The guys who's chopping cars, open up a scrapyard. Legit. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always a legitimate business to every kind of crime, and I've always seen it from the outside. And, you know, I try and, you know, mentor people in the local community. I did all my life, to be fair. You know what I mean? Like, try and keep people away from, you know, the rough and tough of the community. But yeah, college was mad. College. I lost my father in college. So like my first year at college. You know, the Rock, the guy who taught me everything. Like, I literally believe he taught me everything I needed to know in life, full stop.
Really? Up until that point, after that, you've learned it?
Yeah, because, you know, I would love to have him longer. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of guys, don't get me wrong, like, there's guys out here without parents, right? Who have had a hard time, who are still making it. There's guys out here who've got, no mother. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, up until that point, I was in a bit of a bubble. I was like, I got my mum, I got my dad, I'm hustling, I got nothing to worry about. And then, boom, Dad's passed away. I'm like,
wow. Kind of pulled the rug from.
Yeah, literally.
Kind of thing.
Literally. I was like, what am I doing in my life? Like, yeah, I'm making money, I'm going to college. But I literally lost all vision of life. Like, there was probably an 18-month period where I just didn't know what to do. Wow. It was crazy.
Was that like, at that point, did you kind of spiral out of control? Or you kind of just, I don't know.
I think cars just came out the window. Like, okay. I didn't even think about cars then. It was like, okay, well, education is what he wanted me to do. I need to focus on that. I need to kind of think what he would have wanted, because like, it's taught me everything. I mean, my dad was a teacher, so he retired as a teacher. So for me, it was like, school's one thing, but I'd go home and I'd learn so much more off my dad. I mean, he used to have books for everything. Yeah. Like, we had bookshelves. Like, you probably ain't got a bookshelf in your house. I ain't.
I used to have bookshelves. Not now. Bro, there ain't no bookshelves.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
but back in the day, there was. Not that I was reading them.
Yeah,
but there was books in my house.
Yeah, but like, my living room, there was 2 massive bookshelves. Yeah. My dad always just said, read. Want to learn something? Library. He used to take us to library. So I remember that, like, just before he passed away, we went to Birmingham Library, Central Library, and he was like, what do you need for college? What do you need to learn? And I was like, this. But I really want to learn about cars. He goes, listen, don't need to know about cars. You love cars, you'll do it at a later date. And I took it on board. And I was like, okay, cool. And so back then, what the first thing is? The first book, I said this to you at Santa Pod, didn't I? Not really a Porsche guy, right?
Okay, yeah.
But the first book I purchased, was a book on the Porsche 911.
Okay,
and the fundamentals, the engineering behind it, the engine and everything. Yeah. But I'm not a Porsche fan. Disclaimer. You're still not.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. No, I'm joking. Okay, cool. That's interesting. Why ain't you a Porsche guy then?
I don't know.
No. Do you know what? I absolutely get it. Because not a lot of people are Porsche guys. I find Porsches, you kind of really got to really want one to buy one.
Yeah.
Because they're you could buy so much more for your money.
Yeah.
Cars that might shout, look at me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Cars that perhaps might be cheap. I don't know. I just feel like you've kind of got every Porsche looks the bloody same. Pretty much too,
I think that's my biggest beef with it. Like, my biggest issue with Porsche is like, they haven't done anything dramatic in the last 40, 50 years. Do you get it? Yeah. Obviously, engines have evolved, ECUs have evolved. They're bloody lightning quick at the factory. Like, I think the Porsche 992 is the quickest production car at the moment, isn't it?
I believe so.
It's crazy.
So. But you know what? I totally get it. There's not. If you're someone who likes to be an individual in the car scene, or kind of, modifying and it's kind of looking a bit different, or there's not that with the Porsche, because you could have one from 10 years ago that kind of looks like the same as the newest one. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's that element I agree with.
I think at Santa Pod, man, it's easy losing to a Porsche. You know what I mean, I don't take offense. Do you know what I mean? Where if it was a 106 GTI,
that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. And that was the last time I saw you, actually. Yeah. You was using the.
Oh mate, I was driving 3 cars that day. I don't know how.
Oh yeah, you was in the M2. You was in the new M3.
Yeah, the
M3
new
was it, or M4?
M3.
Okay.
Yeah.
You found a tune for that yet?
There's options out there. ECU is still locked. You can't communicate with it. But there's like piggyback options.
Okay.
Fueling options, turbo options.
Turbo options, but you can't tune these.
It's crazy, isn't it? This is mad.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you would have to put a tuning box on it and run a turbo.
When you say tuning box, man, tuning box splits up into so many different, entities. But generally, like, there is one company in the BMW scene, Berger Motorsport, who make loads of tuning modules.
Yes. Okay.
And they're very advanced. Like, out of all the tuning boxes, they're probably the best on the market.
Do you know what? I was going to ask you about tuning boxes. I'm not going to ask you this second, but we're going to get to tuning boxes.
Okay, we'll get there.
I want you to kind of tell me about your first business and how NV Motorsport started and what you started on and how that was.
Obviously, after education, I knew my path. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go education. I went into kind of, I did college, just about got through college. Like I said, college was a blur for me. After all that happened during that time, I was like, okay, can't be bothered with college, can't be bothered making money. I'll just, I was in a plateau. I didn't know what to do. Ended up at uni. I don't know how I got into uni, but I got into uni. And I kind of found my mojo again because I started making money again. Okay. So
same kind of
vibe,
I was
buying and selling anything like at that time. So whatever was in the, you know, whatever was hot at that time, I'd buy it in bulk and sell it. Whatever gadget it was, whatever it was, legally. Do you know what I mean? Like everything. And then I kind of moved on to cars. I was like, okay, well, I'm making enough money now. I'm going to start buying and selling a couple of cars. So me and my mate got together and we started buying and selling cars. It was mad. Like I said, it was still kind of...
Are we talking dodgy cars? Like man just throwing them together?
No. Legit cars, like literally.
Okay.
Doing what we can.
In,
No. Straight cars. And what we'd do, we'd literally buy a car, you know, clean it up, polish it up, take it to uni, stick a for sale sign on it at uni. Do you know what I mean? Park it up outside. If it's sold, it's sold. If not, we got to lift home. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how it was. It's crazy. But I found myself at uni. I was doing computer science, and I was like, shit, this is good shit. Like I enjoyed it. I was like, wow. There's two elements to this. There was like computer programming, networking, and all of that, and there was a business element to it. I was like, perfect. This is like the key to me getting into what I want to do. But yeah, I think the actual process of education, uni, exams, coursework, dissertations and all of that, I really despised. I didn't like it. I was like, okay, well, I could go into uni every day, learn something new. I don't need to be tested on it because if I learn it and I want to use it, I'd learn it, right?
Yeah.
If you learn it and you don't want to use it in the future, then obviously it's going to come at your head, right? Yeah. So what I started doing is mad because at the end of like the second year, I was like, you know what? I'm not really feeling this programming course, right? But my mate's on a motorsport course.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to jump in a motorsport course.
Okay.
So I didn't re-enroll or anything. I literally went into his lectures.
Oh, so you would just...
So I was like, wow, this is cool.
Okay.
Because obviously at that time, lecturers didn't really know you on first name basis. They were like massive hall, whatever it was. So I went from motorsport and I thought, what else can I learn here? I literally, every day I went into uni, I went into a different class, different lecture.
You've got people not even wanting to turn up for one class, their own class, and you're there.
But yeah, I was picking and choosing. I was like, okay, well, what's on today? And I'd look through the rotor.
So hang on. Were you doing your stuff too and that? Or
were
you just... Okay, so you were doing both.
Yeah, so I was doing both. I was like, there's no way I'm going to drop this degree and go into motorsport because I'll have to start again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to utilise what I can and think, okay, in a minute. At motorsport, they're not learning about computer programming. Why not? Like, surely, like ECUs have evolved now. This is going like late 2000s. Why don't them combine them both? Like, there was no course that would combine computing and motorsport. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to jump in the motorsport courses. So I learned all the fundamentals at uni for motorsport. So like how an engine works, how a gearbox works, fluid dynamics, all of that stuff. Sick. But I never set an exam, never did any coursework. I just turned up, soaking up the information.
Do you know what? That's so cool. That's so cool.
I never got found out, by the way. Like,
you never got found out?
I was there.
Free education, as it bloody should be. But no, that's really interesting. That's smart too. That's really smart. Yeah. So that was the step into...
That was a step into the kind of what I want to do, which is ECU programming, software development. 19, 20 years old, I thought, this is what I want to do. Whatever car I had at the time, do you know what I mean? I was kind of trying to tweak it, trying to change things. I found that certain companies, certain manufacturers are not easy to talk to, like the Peugeots, the Jap cars. They don't really have a direct communication, but we were quite lucky because during that era, there was a time where cars were coming out and they were like, legislation says we need to read and write to the car now. Okay. So that was like perfect. Yeah. Okay, so what cars are out there?
So that's actually legislation.
Yeah. So by law, you need to be able to read and write to the car.
Interesting. Okay.
By dealers, and they need to be able to offer that service independently as well to a degree. Okay. So like we're BMW authorized, so we can scan keys, program control modules and stuff. But if the ECU is locked out for performance reasons, they're allowed to do that. Okay. But the actual software itself, like imagine every car has an ECU, right? But every ECU is manufactured by different companies. Right. But manufacturers would utilize one certain brand. So the German cars, this is how I jumped into the German world, would not use the Italians. They wouldn't use the Chinese, Denso and Magneti Morelli. They'd use the Germans, right? Yeah. So I was like, shit, I need to learn German.
What, as in speak German?
Yeah. So I was like...
Don't tell me you learned German.
Yeah, so what did I do? I went into uni.
You're joking?
yeah. I went into a language degree. I was like, serious. Fuck. Let me go to a couple of German classes. So I started learning the basics. I was like, shit. So then...
And then you found out that the Germans speak English, so you didn't have to...
Yeah, well, kind of.
Okay.
All the ECU programming is still German.
German, yeah.
So you need manually translate them. And back then there was 1,000, 10,000 tables per ECU. So it was kind of, okay, I need a bit of German, I need a bit of motorsport, I need a bit of computer science. Then we put it all together. I know what I want to do. How do I do it? And then I thought to myself, well, I actually don't know how a car is put together. I know how to service them. I know how to do all of that. I was like, what do I do? Like, if a car comes in and I need to take a gearbox off, I can do it. But if a car comes in and, I need to strip off loads of stuff, how do I know what to take off? And don't forget, every car is manufactured in a certain way, so it's easy to take off, right? There's a standardized work method. So I was like, okay, I need to work in manufacturing.
Okay.
So it's going to make you laugh, but I left uni.
Okay.
I literally, I upped
like
ships.
that.
I was
so
like,
you didn't finish?
I didn't finish now.
Oh, wow.
I didn't finish.
How long were you there?
I was there 4 years.
And you read it all that way?
I read it all that way. And I didn't finish uni. I was like, shit. And people say to me now, was it a waste of time? I was like, no. I took all the notes I needed to. I sucked up all the information I needed. I utilised every single lecture that I wanted. And I knew what I wanted to do. And it was funny because I landed a job at one of the world's largest motor manufacturers. I won't mention their name because, do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah, I landed a job there, and I landed there, and they were like, "You're overqualified." I was like, "What? What do you mean?" Well, the job role you're going at is like production, and production is like robotic work and monotonous, and we think you should be at a certain level. I said, "Nah, but I don't want it. I want to be in I want to see how a car's built from start to finish. Like, there is nothing out there that tells you this, right?" So yeah, that's what I did. I was there for kind of 3.5, 4 years. I took different roles, right? But majority of it was kind of, software programming, initialization, diagnostics, production, hands-on. And it was tedious, bro. It was a sentence and a half. Like, for me, it felt like I was going into work to learn a skill to a degree where I could take it away and start something myself. Okay. But yeah, you fall into a 9 to 5, you fall into shift work, and you kind of get carried away. And it was funny because at the end of my term there, the world went through recession, 2007. Okay. It was a mad time, so people were getting made redundant, and I got made redundant. I was like, well, no better opportunity than to set up a business right now. And I was like, what? You're mad? The country's in a recession. You can't set up a business now. Everyone's telling me not to. I was like, mate, I've made money all my life. I know I can do it, so that was it. But yeah, the company I worked for was mad because you're constantly restrained from doing things. Like, you'd have a job role and you couldn't do anything more. So you'd have a process or whatever it was, and you'd be in charge of something. But there were kind of opportunities. There was opportunities for other stuff like improvement. Okay. So I kind of like won loads of awards for Kaizen. Kaizen means like continuous improvement, which is something that I've done all my life. Like, continuous improvement is kind of making things better. Got you. Adapting things, making it, better than what it was, making it more efficient. And my whole life became about efficiency. See, like coming down today was stress.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm used to efficiency. I'm like, Google Maps tells me 2 hours and 9 minutes I need to leave at this time. I calculated this, maybe one stop. I'll get there with about 15 minutes. Yeah. 3 crashes. Like, you can't.
These are things you can't predict.
You can't predict.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, so that company made me as efficient as I could be, and I was like, right now I've got all the skills that I need to. How do I set up a business? I ain't got a clue how to set up a business. So yeah, I bought a little van.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought a little.
Doing mobile.
Yeah, I was doing mobile stuff. So imagine I've got all this skill. I'm going around mechanics, and majority of the mechanics and garages in Birmingham get a bad name. Okay. I'm not just saying that outside of Birmingham. I'm just saying, like, generally, they don't know what they're doing. Like, that was the kind of the consensus, and all the gear and no idea. So I was going into garages where they had dealer level equipment, right, and they didn't know how to use it. I was like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? So I was freelancing. So I was going around to garage to garage to garage, and I was like, okay, well, I know how to use this. Anytime you got a car in, give us a call, and I'll come and use your equipment to do it, and I'll charge you a fee. So I did that for like 18 months. I was traveling all over the UK, not just in Birmingham. So I'd, go up to Scotland, Ireland. I'd travel and utilise all of their equipment and still earn and live.
This time it was kind of your core kind of base of mechanics. It wasn't so much tuning or things like that. Or?
Yeah, it was programming, diagnostics. There was a bit of there was an element of tuning in most of my kind of time there. But yeah, majority of it was kind of, utilising the dealer level diagnostics programming, and stuff like that, which is mad because, you know, going back, there was not really anybody training anyone to do these things. Like, you'd literally have to go out your way to learn about cars, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, there was no open source. Like, there was internet, right? Come on, the internet back then.
It was terrible.
It was terrible. Yeah, it was a different ball game. So yeah, I think that was the kind of entry into the.
And then now, so the MVM that we see today, right, where it's at now, I can't even remember our first point of contact. I can't remember how we made contact. Somehow we made contact. I feel like I might have seen your Instagram and you talking about Dinos or something. I can't remember.
Possibly. I talk about Dinos a lot.
That's the thing.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
this is the thing, right? And I thought it'd be interesting. I thought, look, usually, like, you'll start speaking, I'll be lost.
Oh, man.
So I thought today we might have a bit of time to sit down so you can actually talk about Dinos, because look, we know, and funnily enough, going back to what you were talking about before, like people being able to give you whatever figure you want. Like, that still goes on today to a certain extent.
Mate.
Dinos can be cheated, and they are cheated. And there's a lot of different dinos too. Obviously, you've got hub dinos, you've got dinos that read at the wheel, you've got dinos that read at the crank, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you are probably, by listening to some of your let's call them rants or whatever you want to call them about dinos, right?
Oh, shuck.
You seem very knowledgeable when it comes to it. And do you want to talk us through your dyno setup and some common misconceptions with dynos, and just tell us about dynos, bro?
You know what it is with dynos? Like, for me, it's a tuning tool, right?
Yeah.
So you know, you put a car on a dyno, you get a figure. How do you improve it? Calibration, software, hardware, increase that figure, right? The fundamentals of all dynos is horsepower and torque, right? Horsepower itself ain't measured on a dyno, by the way. No, horsepower is a calculation from torque.
Okay.
So all dynos actually measure torque.
Okay.
Mad, isn't it?
Okay. But you'd be right in that, because am I right in saying it's a brake on the dyno that's applied, right? And it's the torque of your car that needs to fight against. Fuck it, mate. I'm gonna
typically, yes, you're right. You're right.
Am I getting there?
Yeah, you're getting there.
Okay.
More so than anyone else I've ever met. Do you know what I mean? Like,
mate, that just hit me now. Like, literally, I didn't know before, and that was just kind of working.
You know what it is to measure torque on a car, right? Ideally, you want to stick a tow bar on it, stick it on a wall, and measure the torque it takes to pull that wall out, right? That's how you'd. You know, if you were to think about force, that's how you measure force, like, or weight. Like, if you were to have weighing scales, you put a weight on there and it will tell you by how much it pulls it. So you've got to understand that horsepower and torque itself, torque itself is a measure of rotational mass.
Okay.
Right? So wherever the rotating point is where you can measure it from. So when people say pounds per feet, what does that actually mean?
I have no clue.
You have no clue.
I'm still here, though. I'm still here. Okay. I'm with ya. I have no clue.
So pound per feet in itself is how many pounds does it take to move that circular thing, whether it's the crank, whether it's a wheel, 1 foot.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Pounds per foot. Yeah.
Pounds per foot.
Cool. I'm going to edit that bit out. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Pounds per foot.
So if you kind of think of a car, right, the ideal way to test any car is to take the engine out, stick the crank, the flywheel, onto an engine dyno and calculate that force, that pounds per foot. Where it comes into play is how many revolutions it does per minute, RPM, engine speed, in order to create that pounds per foot.
Okay.
So to measure it, so in example, if you were to stick a spanner at the end of a crank and start the car, the spanner would spin, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to apply some sort of resistance to it. To stop it, which will be your measure of torque. Now, horsepower itself was actually, you know, we're going back to the 1600s. James Watt, you know, he derived horsepower by, you know, how many horses does it take to turn a mill in a factory in comparison to like a steam engine.
Interesting.
So when he was calculating,
is that where horsepower comes from?
That's where it comes from, yeah. So he's like, okay, so it takes 1 horse, 15 minutes to turn this mill, and in comparison, my steam engine does that in a second. Like that rotational force. So that's where the horsepower come from. But it's all still derived from torque, right? The the relationship between torque and horsepower is a simple calculation. So he came up with that calculation, which was, okay, we've got a rotational mass, we've got the torque, right? What we'll do, we'll times the rotational mass by the torque, rotational speed by the torque, and divide it by a number 5252. Have you heard that number before?
No.
So it's a constant.
Okay.
And the reason why people put constants in mathematic formulas is because it tells you what every other part of that formula does, right? So the outcome is your horsepower. So if you look at a dyno graph, 4,000 RPM makes 500 pounds per feet of torque, times 4,000 RPM by 500 pounds per feet of torque, divided by 5252. Look above the graph, you'll see that's the horsepower.
Interesting. Okay.
Have we got an example? Have we got an example? Yeah.
Have you? So literally, you wouldn't even, as soon as you see the torque on the graph at what particular RPM, you can do this calculation.
Well, that's what the dynos do.
But you could, like,
you could, yeah. So okay. To see if a dyno has been drawn up or measured, that's the only way you're going to know. Do this calculation, and wherever that horsepower lies, if it's way off, you know that's been drawn on Excel or some shit, right?
Are people doing that?
Mate,
of course, bro. Stranger things have happened.
Oh, fucking hell,
mate. Just photoshopping graphs.
Oh, mate, people are doing some mad shit. Mad shit. So, yeah, when it comes to kind of, dynos, so I don't want to lose anyone.
No, bro. This is really interesting. It's intriguing, bro. You had me. Keep going.
Yeah, so there's different types of dynos, right? And everyone has this kind of fundamental, how much power does it make at the crank? Nobody ever knows, right? Unless you take the engine out. But you do know, because, like, if BMW, for example, said the new M3 came, 500 brake horsepower from the factory, you've gone to a dyno jet roller, right? And you've pulled on that car and it's made 480 wheel horsepower.
So there's 20 brake
loss, drivetrain loss. And what's your drivetrain? Your drivetrain is your drive shaft, your diff, your gearbox, your two half shafts, and your wheel, right? So, quite simply, you can work out the wheel loss on that car.
Okay. So now, everyone saying you never know is at the crank until you take the engine out. Or sorry, you never know what power it really is unless you take the engine out.
Yeah.
You do.
Kind of, yeah.
Closely, anyway. So, quite close.
So Dynojet themselves as a brand said, okay, we're going to make a dyno after everyone else has made a dyno, by the way. Like Dynojet was one of the later ones. We're going to make a dyno and we're going to measure wheel horsepower simply by wheel torque.
Okay.
Right? So we know the torque. We use the same methods to measure this torque, which is one roller, tires go on it, apply a force, measure the torque. And it does that by a strain gauge. Well, it's a load cell, right? Okay. Do you know what a load cell is?
I know what strain gauge is.
Yeah, well, so a load cell is, them...
Yeah.
Okay. So same method, right? So it kind of force in, force out, and that's what it measures. Okay. So all dynos are equipped with load cells in the modern day, and that's what measures the force. Okay. So whether it's rotational force, which is transferred from the cylinder to that load cell, that's how it measures it. The beauty of that load cell is it can measure the force applied and it can measure the force unapplied. Okay. So if you see dyno pulls and you see at the end of the dyno pull, the guy puts it in neutral, doesn't leave the car in gear, puts it in neutral, and you're waiting for the car to come down all the way.
Isn't that where isn't it on the rundown that it measures the losses?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how many dynos have you been on that measures the losses on the rundown?
One.
And that's the latest one you've been on.
That's the latest one.
Amazing.
And that's the only reason I know that.
Yeah.
But again, I only know that because I've been told that at that dyno. Exactly. So I couldn't say that other dynos aren't doing it, but it's the only one I'm aware of.
So the other dyno that you use most regularly.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. It doesn't have that ability to do it. Okay. But it's got a database of cars. So it knows what it is. So what that does is shortens down the tuning time, shortens down the data time, data acquisition. Okay. So then they use...
it's almost assuming that my car is the same as the other models.
Yeah. Same tyres, same brakes, everything, right? So don't forget, obviously, if you put 40-inch wheels on your car and put it on the dyno...
Damn, you just told people my next mod, bro. That's a 40-inch spinner.
You'd have greater transmission loss, right? Because... more rotation, more loss, more friction, etc. So, in kind of essence, like there are many different types of dynos, but there's only a couple of dynos that can measure that transmission loss or measure it to a degree where it's most accurate.
It was the Maha that I was on.
Yeah, so Maha use very much the industry standard of, when we say industry standard, one of the most respected standards of kind of measuring power and torque, which is what we use. We use a Bar Pro, which is based upon a Maha system, which is exactly the same. Okay. Uses a load cell, dyno. It kind of, measures on the way up and it measures on the coast down.
Okay.
So when it comes to kind of, the dynos itself, obviously you've got single roller. So the last one you went on was single roller, wasn't it?
No, I don't think so. What, the Maha?
So did your tyre go in between two rollers, or did it?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was 4 single rollers.
Yeah. So
as opposed to 2 rollers and a tyre sitting in the middle.
Yeah. So
single roller.
The problem with tyre sitting in the middle is it has a tendency to creep.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've probably seen that.
Yeah.
And the problem with it creeping is it reduces the amount of inertia, which then inflates the end figure. But Maha came away from that double roller setup because a lot of their dyno operators were coming off the back roller and they were inflating figures. So Maha then went single roller. So now
Dynojet runs single too.
So Dynojet runs single as well.
But they don't measure the loss on
they
the
don't.
down.
It can do though. This is what I'm trying to tell you. So every guy who owns a Dynojet with WinPep, which is the software that runs it, it can actually measure that.
But why don't they utilize that?
The reason being is because once you go single roller on a dyno, you have a high wheel horsepower because there's less friction, less loss, right? Measured at the drum, which is the load cell. So as soon as you go from a Mustang, do you know what a Mustang dyno is? Old school.
I've heard Mustang dynos read really high. No?
Really low.
Oh, are they the heartbreakers?
Yeah, they're the heartbreakers. Simply because they only measure wheel horsepower, not flywheel horsepower.
Got you.
Do you get it? Mm-hmm. They have no ability to measure the flywheel horsepower with parasitic load cells.
Okay.
Right. So the Mustangs came along and they were predominantly the world's dyno, right? They were the biggest manufacturers and they were like, okay, this is the wheel horsepower. If it came from the factory with this and this is what we're measuring it, then this is the loss. So we'll make a full database of all the losses that we can measure on all the cars and all different types. So they were the industry standard at the time. Then Maha came along, VTEC, Bapro, and they were like, yeah, we're going to use this new type, which is, calculating parasitic loss. The biggest misconception, regardless of what dyno you use, right, is the percentile loss.
What's the percentile loss?
So typically Dynojet. We're talking Dynojet. So Dynojet themselves say our wheel horsepower is called Dynojet wheel horsepower. It's not.
Oh, so it's not like it's like their own.
Yeah, so you get a 4-roller setup like a Mustang. You've got a lot of heat, a lot of traction, a lot of friction. It's going to have a very low wheel horsepower because it's measuring on high inertia, right? Dynojet doesn't. It almost freewheels. There's hardly any resistance to it. So if you go on a Dynojet, your pull's about 5 seconds, right? What?
Yeah.
Right? So your losses are low. So your wheel horsepower is going to be high.
Okay.
Right? So I'll give you an example. I use the M3 again, right? So the M3, 500 horsepower from factory. Dynojet ran 480. Your 20 horsepower loss.
Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If now we tune the car, we get 1,000 horsepower from the car. 1,000 wheel horsepower. Right? What are you making at the flywheel?
What are we making? Should we make 960? No? Because it's double the power, so double the losses.
No, let me say that again. So
man's putting me in a match. He's putting me on a spot.
So 480 wheel horsepower your M3 has made, right?
Yes.
And your drivetrain loss is 20 horsepower.
20 horsepower.
So this is where I'm going to go back to the percentile.
This is what I was saying though, right? So surely if you're doubling the power, no, you don't. No, in fact, it's 980 because it's the same drivetrain loss.
Hang on a minute. Let me make it easy for you. So I made 480 wheel horsepower.
Guys. He's exposing me.
I've made 480 wheel horsepower on a Dynojet with my G80 M3. I've now made 980 wheel horsepower tuned.
Yes.
Full forged, whatever it is. Yeah. How much flywheel do you think I've got?
You should have 1,000.
You should have.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
You only know that now.
Uh-huh.
In the real world, what would they say?
What? Oh, yeah. They're going to say it's loads of... Yeah, because...
Why?
Because I don't know, because there's industry standard percentages, isn't there?
Why?
I don't know, because people talk about 10%, 15%, 20%. I don't know. It should always be the same, right? It's the beginning.
So yeah, the drivetrain loss is a constant. Remember I said the 52 is a constant? There also another constant is transmission, drive shafts, wheels, tires.
Of course.
Obviously, if you don't massively change them, and they're the same kind of circumference, then your wheel horsepower and your flywheel horsepower difference is always going to be fixed to a degree. We're not saying exactly.
Okay, yeah. So why is it a percentage then?
So now let's work percentages.
Don't make sense.
So
what you're saying is right, the percentage.
Yeah. So if you've got 480 wheel horsepower now, and you say you've got a 20. No, let's make it easier for you.
Make it easy for me, bro.
500 wheel horsepower I've made on the Dyno Jet.
Yes.
You saying I got a 20% loss.
Yeah.
So I've made how much at the flywheel?
Bro, you've got 600.
600
brake.
It doesn't sound too bad, does it? It's 100 horsepower loss, right? It's not huge,
no,
right? But it's a bit daft, right?
Yeah.
Car's made 500 wheel horsepower. You're saying there's 100 brake horsepower loss, 600 horsepower. I'll tell you what sounds even more daft. Yeah. I've now made 1,000 horsepower wheel horsepower.
You got 200 brake loss. Now, wouldn't it be? Would it be?
Exactly.
If you're running the same percentage.
So,
but yeah, hang on. How are you losing more?
So how do you lose? How do you increase the transmission loss on a car when you're making more power?
All right, here's my flip side, yeah, and my completely uneducated comeback to a little bit of that, yeah.
Go on.
Heat's
one factor,
right? So heat is energy, which energy is power, or whatever. The more power your car's making, more heat that components perhaps produce.
Okay, so
losing a little, but it's only going to be minor, right?
Okay, so you got 5W40 engine oil, right? Mm-hmm. So at 500 horsepower, your oil is going to be a certain viscosity. You add heat to it, does that oil get thinner or thicker?
Gets thinner. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it gets thinner. Yeah.
What happens to the gearbox fluid?
Yeah, thinner. Okay. So basically, you're saying everyone's doing it wrong, but is it everyone's doing it wrong?
No, I don't think so. Look,
is it
credit where credit's due? Look, there's guys in the industry that literally stick to the wheel horsepower. Yeah. And they were like, okay, I made 500 wheel horsepower, I made 600 wheel horsepower tuned.
The rest is a guess.
The rest is a guess.
Yeah.
But no, your dyno has the ability to actually kind of come up with a figure. You're just not happy to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. So, wow. So generally, and is 20%, sorry, not 20%, but let's say 500 brake horsepower and then make it 500 brake at the crank and then only making 480 at the wheel. So is a 20% just a made up, sorry, not 20, a 20 brake horsepower loss, just something you've done for an example? Is that quite real? Is it like a 20%?
That's definitely real. If you've got a low friction gearbox like a ZF8.
So, like only 20 brake horsepower for the drivetrain.
But then you add another 2 rollers to that dyno, increase the amount of friction, right? You've got now less wheel horsepower because the amount of heat generated, the amount of traction generated, you're now measuring at a lower rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Basically, the more load, the more friction, the slower your car will be generally, right? So if you add some more wheels to your car, what happens?
Yeah, your car's going to get...
It's going to get slower, right? So generally, that's the kind of rule of the thumb. And, you know, there's no disrespect to any of the tuners out there, right? And I say this, you know, openly, like, if you don't know, you don't know. That's the bottom line. Yeah. But if you want to know, there's a lot of information out there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of books you can read to educate yourself and make yourself a better person by understanding your tool, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But
so would you say that your figures on your, not your only dyno, but people who run the same dyno as you, the Mahas too, and things like that, they're more accurate? Using that rundown, they're a more accurate.
I think so.
At crank figure.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the wheel is the wheel. Yeah. The rest is a guess if you're using percentages, kind of.
But I mean, you could go on a dyno, like you could have a dyno run, and the guy could leave the car on. Like if you go to an independent dyno, or you go to another tuner's dyno, right? The guy could leave your car running for half an hour, increase intake temperatures, and reduce that dyno pool in terms of power. Do you get it? So any dyno pool that we do, whether it's our own cars, whether people want to get a dyno run, we always data log it. And we'll say, look, on this day, our fan speed was this, air pressure was this, humidity was this, and this is what car produced. Okay. That's simply what it is. Yeah. So there's many factors that can affect the power and the torque of the car, mainly kind of environmental factors. And some dynos do take that into account, so it will give a more average kind of result at the end of it. So there's different standards, SAE, DIN. There's loads of different calculations to take into account weather correction. So you're probably seeing it on some dynos, WCF, weather correction factor. So some dynos,
I know this, like the temperature and the atmospheric pressure that day or whatever the hell is adjusted.
Yeah.
Or you're meant, right? A lot of dynos you're meant to adjust before you start, but people leave the. Would I be right in saying a way of cheating a dyno is like you can leave the wrong kind of inputs, like the temperatures and.
Yeah, I mean it depends what dyno. There's so many different dynos out there, but generally a dyno that's locked out, like our dyno BioPro, you can't change any settings.
It does it.
Yeah, it's got a weather station.
Okay.
And it's got a computer, and it just whatever you measure is what you measure. And the reason for that is because if someone was to come, industry personnel, and says, "Hang on a minute, what you're producing is false," come dissect the whole dyno, see if there's anything wrong with it. It's like if you went to a market, man, you bought some potatoes, right? You went to a guy and he put them potatoes on a weighing scale, and he had a false weight. It's charging you more for that potato.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for real.
That's what's happening with dynos. Dynos are the measuring tool. They are the medium for measurement of power and torque. Some people, like I had a conversation on Facebook the other day. Don't get me started on Facebook and Facebook
I'm not even
groups
on it,
and
bro.
stuff.
I'm not even bothered.
Bro, I'm telling you, like, I had a conversation with someone the other day. Like, dynos don't matter. They don't
it's
matter.
all about road tuning.
It's all about draggy. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, tell that to my solicitor 3 months ago.
Right?
Do you know what I mean? Like, 3 months ago, yeah? Tell that to my solicitor. Draggies are amazing.
Okay. What you got?
So what's that? 100 to 200 kilometers in Mexico?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that don't really.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
in UK. Do you know what? Right, I actually feel dumb speaking to you, bro.
Nah, don't say it.
But no, listen. No, do you know what it is? Right, it's your thing. It's what you do, and it's really interesting hearing someone speak about it passionately, but informatively.
Yeah.
And also, I don't feel like it's not like you're overcomplicating things. You're saying things very straight.
Hey, I try so hard
and I'm learning.
Speak in layman's
don't get
terms.
me wrong. I am kind of I'm in and out. I'm trying to hold on, but I don't think you're making it complicated. And what we've came to now has made sense to me. So I'm a little bit more.
So if you go back a couple of years to your dyno pools at XYZ tuning or whatever it was, now you apply that science to that, you will now see more normality in your results.
Okay.
So I beg you after this, yeah?
I'm thinking how many times I've been on what dyno and this, that, the other. No, but definitely it does make you think. And I'll definitely be thinking that at the next, or thinking about what you said. And I'm going to be in contact with you, bro. I'm going to be like, look, bro, let's make this and deal. What is it?
I am not the dyno police, right? I'm not here to kind of shout anyone out or kind of rumble anyone's, business. But at the end of the day, look, if you've got a tool, you need to know how to use it. You need to understand how it works, and you need to be an expert in that.
But do you find this is the problem, right? I would say there's too many people, it seems, going off what we're talking about, that don't know how to use the dynos, now becoming the majority, and the minority no one cares about, because the guys doing it right, they haven't got, they're the minority. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone's going off the majority who are doing it wrong and using all these weird calculations that is now kind of industry standard calculations and taking it as the gospel.
Yeah.
So that's almost now that what counts. Is that?
It's a shame because, like, every industry, every business, every kind of entity, like food industry, they've got standards, haven't they? They've got kind of a governing standard, almost like a policing of their system. The tuning industry has none.
No, you're right.
There's no one saying, like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Actually, this is against the law. You shouldn't be lying to your customers. Yeah. Do you get it? Like, there is none of that. And that's because the actual tuning industry isn't taking that seriously.
Yeah.
But it's a massive industry. It's a massive...
It's true. Bro, we should be the fucking tuning police, bro. Let's do this.
Police.
Let's do this.
Man.
Coming soon to check out your dyno, me and Mabz.
Oh, mate.
Sending Mabz to you.
Mate, there's some great facilities out there, man.
Yeah,
I've seen some great facilities, great platforms for tuning. You know what it is these days? There's, it's far easier for you to send a file to a guy in Germany, get it back in 3 minutes, flash it in the car, and claim you've got the fastest car in the UK. Do you get it? There's not many calibrators out there.
Bro, I was going to get to this. Copy and paste.
Mate.
Copy. There's two. Right, so what? Right, obviously, I already know. There's no point me asking you this question, but it'll be interesting to just hear your thoughts on it, I guess. But what a lot of people don't know, there's people who come into the game, they might have a Golf R or whatever. They want a little stage 1, maybe we want to go stage 2. What a lot of people don't know is that stage 2, the map that's going on your car, is exactly the same map that's went on 100 other cars and was based off a test car at one point that isn't your car. So it's not set up the way your car might be set up. It might not have the same hardware as your car, but they're assuming because the engine is the same as the one they tuned on, this should be fine in your car. Thus, perhaps not being beneficial to your car or as beneficial as a bespoke map where the car is mapped to your hardware and everything else. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, there's that,
and it's not as good.
Yeah, basically. The industry is full of it. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of people who are running those maps on their car from all different places, and they think they're running something special. They are running a copy and paste.
Let me tell you something, right? You go to a 5-star restaurant, right? Say Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. You want Gordon Ramsay to cook your food, right? You wouldn't want a microwave meal.
Yeah.
But you've gone to a 5-star restaurant. You ain't got a clue who's in the kitchen.
Yeah, for real.
You're just eating that food. If the food tastes good, you leave a review. If the food tastes bad, it's fucked, isn't it? Like, it's game over. But that's the industry. The guys out there, there's hardly any chefs, bro. Like, there's guys out there using microwave meals on cars. Like, that's typically what it is. Man. But that's true, isn't it? Right? These guys are just blindly flashing cars.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's certain elements. Look, there's certain guys who are good engine builders. Yeah? Good kind of chassis setup. Wicked, you know, car knowledge, who can build a fast car, who ain't got a clue about calibration. So they will outsource their work. And they will say, yep, this guy from, you know, Poland or wherever he is, he's going to be doing all the tuning remotely and we're going to make a fast car. We don't give a shit. That's acceptable. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you ain't got the expertise and you are coming out of your zone and saying, this guy knows his shit and we're going to utilize him, bang on.
Yeah.
No qualms.
Is it the problem where people start saying, yeah, we done this?
That is a big issue, bro. That is mad. Look, I know, obviously, you know, I know Dan, right?
Dan.
Litko.
Right. Shout out to Litko.
Dan's
a very knowledgeable guy.
Dan is a knowledgeable guy.
Yeah, man.
And I say Dan's a knowledgeable guy because back in the day, you've got to understand that, you know, in terms of learning something, it was difficult. Like, internet was very slow. It was internet forums back then, wasn't it? Groups. There was underground groups. There was, you know, groups about ECU tuning and stuff, and there was only certain access you could have. So yeah, there was, you know, Dan's quite old school. Like, he's been learning ECUs from a long time ago. And, you know, the guy's a pilot.
Yeah. You know when a man's flying an aeroplane, yeah, and in his spare time he makes some sick turbo. You know it's a
it's a good one. Yeah. So he's a nice guy, and you know, this is the thing about the tuning industry. You know, all the calibrators, anyone who's genuinely tuning, all know each other.
Okay.
So you know when...
And there's not a lot of you.
There's not a lot of
It's a small circle.
So when there's XYZ Performance down the road who's built, you know, the fastest quarter-mile car in the world, well, we know who tuned that. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't tell everyone you've tuned it and you can calibrate and you know what you're doing because we know the tuner who tuned it and, you know, he sent you software. The problem is calibration itself is a dark art. Okay. In itself, it's illegal. If you think about it, right? Yeah? It's somebody else's property, Bosch.
It's more of a motor. Are you saying illegal because it's UK like legislation being on the road?
I'm saying in terms of IP. So
you shouldn't be
manipulating somebody else's software.
Like jailbreaking a phone, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's not illegal as such. But you know, understanding the dynamics of an ECU, whatever ECU is, Bosch ECU, Siemens ECU, whatever it is, understanding that dynamics. There are, you know, data that you can read up. You know, function Romans, they tell you every function about that ECU. It's fucking mad. Like, there's some that are 10,000 pages long, bro. Like,
I said 10,000.
10,000 pages long. You know,
that's a novel, bro. That's
crazy.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? All the functions of an ECU, and you've got to understand ECUs have evolved in the last 10 years quicker than anything else, right? Without ECUs, you wouldn't have hybrid cars. You wouldn't have ethanol content. You wouldn't have race fuel. You wouldn't be able to do what you can do. And Bosch, biggest ECU manufacturers in the world, biggest software developers in the world, and in the car industry. You know, they allow companies to use their ECUs and their software, and they develop things for them. But at the same time as developing, they do. I mean, I'd say this in a way, but they do leave room for improvement.
Yeah.
And that's usually down to emissions, and usually down to, you know, constraints of wherever they are. But there are some, you know, backdoors to kind of unlocking power. The hard work goes in that research and development, like getting access to that ECU. First is reading and writing. So whatever tool you use to read and write, you've got to make sure that guy who's manufactured that tool understands how this car reads and writes. That's one weight off your shoulder. Once that's on, like the G8 M3, you can't read and write to it, right? Once that's on, it's game over because like it's a rat race. Yeah. Who can take this software, understand it, manipulate it, and chuck it out there? There's different methods. Like there's loads of different methods to tuning. Yeah. Lately, all the ECUs come with torque management. It's funny because I was talking to someone yesterday about torque and dynos, and he was like, "Yeah, I made 450 pounds per feet of torque." The guy says he put a torque limiter in there at 452. And I was like, let me tell you something first, right? Every ECU out there, has torque limiters in Newton meters.
Okay.
So you got a dyno pool in pounds per feet. Yeah. Right. And the guys. Yeah. So there's a lot of work. Like my dyno reads in Newton meters because the ECUs are in Newton meters. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to put a torque cap or a torque target, then I want my dyno to replicate that. I want to see what it's doing. So, BMW M140, target 700 Newton meters of torque. That car needs to show 700 Newton meters of torque because the ECUs are scaled in a way that they understand how much boost pressure, how much timing, how much load is required for a certain torque target. And the beauty of that is whatever they do in manufacturing stage, we can kind of disrupt in development stage. So we can unlock torque limiters, we can raise boost pressures, we can increase fueling. And the beauty of cars these days are direct injection, as you probably know. Port injection as well on some cars, double injection, which is a major benefit. So that gives us, the reasons to do what we do. But yeah, the world is full of flashes, dashes, I call them. But there's everyone's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, for real.
Everyone's got to say, like if you're into cars and you want to make a car faster, this is what the industry wants. Like the industry will give opportunity to those who just want to flash and dash. Do you know what I mean? No. But as soon as you combine flash and dash, now that guy's who's flashing and dashing now has purchased a dyno.
Yeah.
You got a guy who doesn't know what he's doing twice, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, he has no idea what's going on in that ECU, and he has no idea how a dyno works.
Yeah.
But fuck me, somehow he's made money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Branding, hype, collaborations.
Bro, what a full circle. What a way to tie in what we started this on.
It's mad.
Branding. It's all about branding.
It is, I think.
But I feel like I've sat down and spoke to someone who's very, bro, like, don't get me wrong. I haven't had much conversations with yourself before.
No,
but
we haven't.
Sitting down today and just getting to know you. And do you know what? It's crazy because I just checked the time and we got to wrap this up.
Really?
Bro,
wow.
We ran a little bit late today. That's why this... Bro, I've got so much more to ask you, but I think we're going to have to get you back for a part 2 maybe at some point.
Yeah.
But just sitting down and speaking to you, really intriguing, bro. And you're a really knowledgeable guy. I'm taking your word as gospel because it makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's all it is,
makes sense
isn't
to
it?
me.
If something makes sense to you, would you believe it?
Yeah, that's
it,
right?
If something makes no sense, you kind of question it, right?
Yeah.
But I always say to people, whatever I say, ask why. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to kind of, like, okay, so I got 500 horsepower. Why?
Yeah.
I targeted 1.7 bar of boost, like 17 degrees of timing. That's how I got it. Ask your other guy what he did. I bought a file. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's mad. The industry is mad, but I think, you know what? Credit where credit's due. There's a lot of companies out there that are putting in the graft. They know what they're doing. They're braking times, quarter miles, 100s to 200s, and they're doing a good job at what they do. They've got opportunity and a platform to do it. Certain times I have to be careful as to what cars I do, what I develop on, because I need to think, is there a customer base for it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's no point me doing McLaren 720S when there's 3 in the country. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's daft, but yeah.
Nah, sick. Bro, listen, thank you so much for coming on today. Before we go, where can people find you? I just want to also, because we never even got round to saying, but like in a nutshell, what you do at your shop and where people can find you.
Yeah, well, we're a performance vehicle specialist centre. So like anything performance, service, maintain, repair, diagnose, tune. So predominantly we're German tuning specialists. Our kind of forte is, VAG, BMW. Lately more BMW than VAG, but generally that's where my development is. So anything I develop on is what I kind of hand out to the customers. So I'd always develop on my own car. And then kind of give that to a customer and as a product. But yeah, service, maintain, repairs, dealer level diagnostics, based in Birmingham, junction 2 of the M5, so just outside OLDBURY it's called, and Unit 76, PERCY Business Park.
There you go, bro. There's the plug. Well, of course, I'll be leaving all links to you guys and allow people to find you quite easily in the description. So, guys, check that out. Bro, all I can say is thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, bro.
As I say, it's intriguing.
Yeah.
We've finally done it.
Oh, man.
We finally, do you know what? We've been going for like an hour and a half-ish. And it feels like I've been speaking to you for 5 minutes and there is so much more. So please, bro, we've got to set up you coming back. I won't make you come back too soon because obviously it's a bit of a long drive. You know what I mean?
I don't mind, to be fair. Like I said, if there's you know, a conversation to be had, someone to learn something, for me, it's always a benefit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Always
I respect that, man. Wicked. Well, Mabz, thank you so much. And guys, if you have enjoyed this one, please believe me when I say I'm trying my hardest to make these happen more. And I will get more interesting guests like Mabz on and have cool conversations. So, yeah, bro, thanks again.
Thanks,
and
bro.
Peace out.